painted pony.
We'll get ready for it. Thanks for getting your day going with us as we help you plan for all the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast, of course, as waves of storms firing up at this hour in the central U.S. This has been multiple waves through the weekend, and now it's spilling right over into Monday.
It hasn't stopped here. Storms are still ongoing in Minnesota. We got storms across the Central Plains, and it's raining in the west. We're going to talk about all of this today. Now, we did transition to summer officially.
In some spots.
Right. June 1st, meteorological summer.
Temperature-wise, some of us are in those more summer-like temperatures, and some of us are holding on. But summer also means wildfire season.
Yeah, and wildfires have flared up. Now, thankfully, the weather will provide more favorable conditions for firefighters in California here as they battle the flame-scorching parts of the San Joaquin Valley. We're going to hear more from families who were forced to evacuate over the weekend.
So fire season is really ramping up in California. And we have a big heat wave that's going to be moving into the west. But in the Pacific Northwest, it's more like January.
This is your season to get the sunshine.
Yeah.
It's not happening yet, that's for sure.
And what happens ahead of our big pattern change is today's
evacuation warnings have been downgraded, but residents are advised to be prepared for potential changes. Tori Apodaca from CBS Sacramento talked to families who have returned home after the fire got too close.
Hail it's not all the same size when it falls, so you're trying to look for the biggest one to say, okay, here's how big it can be. And as it was bouncing towards my feet, I was like, is that the size of a penny or a nickel? I couldn't picture it in my head because it had been so long since I had held change in my hand.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so this brings us to our question of the day. We're asking you what items would work better than these to make a change.
Make a change. I like that. I'm trying to think of something universal that we all have.
This used to be
it, but now I'm thinking like all we have that's universal, like phones. And that certainly wouldn't describe hail very well, right? Well, the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season has officially started, and it's expected to be
No, it was piling up. The town of Greeley was inundated by baseball-sized hail. It fell for more than an hour, and it piled up to basically look like a snowstorm, more than a foot deep here.
There was so much hail that it actually clogged drains, and it triggered some flash flooding because of the clogged drains. The mayor issued a disaster declaration, and now residents are trying to repair their homes. Reporter Dylan Thomas from CBS Colorado has more.
This part of the country is considered Hail Alley, but Colorado, Nebraska, Wyoming, where it all come together. This is a spot where we do get multiple hailstorms every year. And, it obviously can be very destructive.
Sizable hailstones, too, like what we saw. Yeah. The all-time record for a hailstone is actually in Vivian, South Dakota. So it just shows you that I think that was 8 inches in diameter was the record, which is hard to fathom.
Well, here's some of the hail that we saw from this event. And, Commerce City, we had 2 3/4. Broomfield here 2 1/4. Buckley over 2-inch size hail. And to get that kind of hail, think about the thunderstorm that has to be in place and the updraft needed to sustain the hailstones until they can grow to that size. You're talking about winds 65 to 80 miles per hour feeding into that thunderstorm updraft.
And think about a hailstone in that diameter, how quickly, when it overcomes gravity finally in the updraft speed, how quickly it falls to ground.
Oh, gravity takes over. Right?
Yeah, gravity takes over fast.
Right.
And so that's when you can see a lot of injuries, people that are out in the hailstorms, but also a lot of damage to your property.
So Texas, you think of Texas with the most storm reports, most hail reports, yes, but there definitely is this corridor stretching from, Colorado up into Nebraska, even Kansas. I mean, really that we get a lot of hail reports every single year.
We're above average, no surprise, because of the type of severe season that we've seen. And we stayed pretty close to average until we got to April, and then things really started to skyrocket as far as those hail reports.
We've been talking about the April-May stretch of severe weather, and there was a lot of storms with damaging winds and tornadoes, but there was a lot of hail reports as well. So looking back at this year, we had March 14th still the top one for number of hail reports, but now we bring in May 8th, the 26th, the 9th, the 23rd. These were all days that were very active with all types of severe weather.
A lot of those very recent. So the memories are fresh at this point. Now, we typically see those hail reports pick up, obviously, in spring, but they stay pretty high through the summertime, too.
June is known as a month of hail, you know, especially into Colorado, into Wyoming, into the Dakotas, where we start to get into our stormy season. So far, when you look at 2024 and the billion-dollar disasters, we've had 7. And of course, we'll always keep an eye on hail as a potential problematic one here. I have to see what they do with this Denver storm.
I imagine that there's a good chance, just with the amount of damage that we've seen, that there's a good shot that it gets added to the list.
Yeah. All right. Well, when you look at billion-dollar disasters and hail, so again, so far that one in Texas for this year, but there were 5 last year. So again, looking ahead to what happens in Colorado. Well, next hour, we're going to speak to it. Well, that doesn't really get here to the end of the week. For now, it's interesting what's happening from west to east. We're going to track it all for you. Thanks for getting your day going with us as we help you plan for the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast as we watch waves of storms firing up at this hour in the central U.S. It's already been a busy morning, but we know that that's going to spill right over into the afternoon.
Yes.
Once again.
I don't think this is really going to give us a break today. Thunderstorms now and thunderstorms throughout the day.
With the heat that we have and the sun angle that we have now, the atmosphere does not take a lot of time to recover.
And the Northwest, you're probably thinking, wait, this is June? No.
It's like January.
It's not the kind of pattern you expect in June.
And meanwhile, in California, this is more what you would expect because we're getting into wildfire season, unfortunately.
But this is a little early here. And, you know, summer does mean wildfire season flares up. Thankfully, the weather will provide more favorable conditions for firefighters here in California as we get through today. They've been battling flames scorching parts of the San Joaquin Valley. We're going to hear more from families who were forced to evacuate over the weekend coming up.
The fire now at over 50% containment, so at least that's good news. That doesn't mean that 50% of the fire is out. It just means they have a better handle on it. And because the weather has gotten a little more favorable for the firefighters, they've been able to get more of that containment overnight.
Right. So these clouds are actually a good thing for us here.
Well, what happens ahead of our pattern change is today's big.
And boy, as we get into June, you know, it is a different look.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, we start off June kind of on the stormy note that we've been continuing all spring, but it's not going to take long before you start to see some big changes.
Yeah, heat does come back across the southern plains, the west. For now, though, this does not look like June in the west.
No, not at all. I mean, it's more like January. I think I saw the National Weather Service in Seattle. They called it January.
Right. That's good. That's good.
Because it's a more winter-like atmospheric river pattern, maybe early spring, but definitely not summer.
No, that's why we set so many rain records. I'll go through those in a moment here coming up. But we also know that summer does also mean wildfire season flares up. Now, thankfully, the weather providing more favorable conditions for firefighters in California as they battle flames scorching parts of the San Joaquin Valley. You can see how blue the sky is here behind this smoke here. Obviously, it was very dry. The fire is now 75% contained,
which is great news. I know they've been working really hard, and this is just the beginning of what could be an active wildfire season. This is actually even a little bit ahead of schedule as far as wildfire season. So
it has not been crazy hot out there too, so this is surprising.
It was a little surprising. Maybe it had to do more with the wind. I think when they figure out the source of the fire too, that will answer a lot of questions. Well, what happens ahead of our pattern change is today's.
They are indeed heroes.
They really are, and they've been working around the clock to try to contain this fire, and they've had a lot of success at containing it. Right now, 75% contained, so hopefully the containment continues to go up.
The weather should help today. Well, some parts of Colorado are cleaning up. Nearly
you
one.
You always find one in the couch cushion, but it doesn't. People don't carry it around in their pockets anymore, so it doesn't fall out.
So our question of the day is, what items would work better too?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And, you know, we do have some citrus on there. Like, I think there's lime size.
Yeah,
that's grapefruit sometimes.
We need to add the kumquat.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, keep those comments coming. We appreciate them. Go to Threads. You can send pictures and video with us using the hashtag YesTV.
The 2024 Atlantic Hurricane
marks the start of Colorado's hail season, and the state is no stranger to big hail events.
In 2017, a hailstorm in the Denver metro area caused more than $2 billion in damage. And just last year, concert goers at the Red Rocks Amphitheater were pelted by hail, and that injured nearly 100 people.
So joining us now to talk more about why Colorado is prone to these large hailstorms is meteorologist at the National Weather Service office in Boulder, Zach Hyris. Zach, thank you so much for joining us today. And let's talk about last week's hailstorm in Greeley and in Denver. Were any records broken by chance? And do you know how much damage was caused by the hail?
To our knowledge, no records. Would be a pretty common thing as we get across the summer months here.
Yeah.
Zach Iris, meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Boulder. Thanks for your time this morning. And I know that they've been very busy as of late, of course, with all these hailstorms, and then they have to assess some of the damage too. But I've seen some very creative solutions to trying to protect property from hail in these hail-prone areas. Pool noodles on cars. They make these giant inflatable things that go around your cars too. And it's kind of what you have to do if you live in a spot where you know that you are prone to some very big hailstones.
I meant to share a video. A friend of mine, Kylie, in Denver, that she puts big boxes over her garden plants because you don't want those to get.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
And even the small hail can affect your garden plants.
A lot of us have those boxes just laying around too. What are you going to do with them? That's a good use of it.